Welcome back to the Choosing My Religion podcast. I'm Michael H., and in this video, we're looking at the International Church of Christ, the International Christian Church, First Principles, Study Series, Study Number 3, Discipleship. All right, so what's the theme of the discipleship study? Well, the discipleship study, sometimes called Coming After Christ or something similar, is typically the third lesson, and it's a turning point, a major turning point in the series. It lays out the expected lifestyle of a true Christian, and they're going to define that as being a disciple. All right, key passages include Acts 11:25-26, where they'll explain that disciples were first called Christians at Antioch. Mark 1:16-20, Jesus telling his first disciples that they would be fishers of men. Luke 9:23-26, the cost of following Jesus. You're going to have to carry your cross. Luke 9:57-62, the urgency of following without looking back. Luke 14:25-33, again, counting the cross, giving up everything to be a disciple. And of course, Matthew 28:18-20, the Great Commission. The study teaches that every true Christian is a disciple, and every disciple must put Jesus above family, self, your finances, your possessions, and be totally committed in actively making other disciples. Often Matthew 28 is used as a reason that to be a Christian, you must not only be a disciple, but you must also make disciples. The leaders in this study will also introduce the concept of discipling, that each disciple should have a mentor, what they call a discipler, who will teach you and correct you to obey everything that they teach. By the end, the recruit will be asked directly, according to the Bible, are you actually living as a disciple? Are you a Christian? Are you saved? The expected answer here is no, leading to the conclusion that you need to take action. And what is that action? You need to decide to become a true disciple as defined by the church. So what is the indoctrination function of this study? So this is one of the biggest indoctrination steps, and it has several purposes. So firstly, it establishes the group's core expectation of absolute and total commitment. So using Jesus' words, the recruit is shown that following Christ means giving everything, complete self-denial, prioritizing Jesus and by extension the group over everything else, especially family and your finances. They'll use Luke 14:26 to say that you got to love Jesus more than family. They'll use Luke 14:33 to say that if you don't give up everything, you can't be his disciple. These are heavy verses that underscore the all-encompassing commitment that will be required for you as the normative standard. 2, it invalidates the recruit's past religious experience. So building on the word study, virtually all recruits, unless they've been in like a similar high commitment group, will conclude that they have not been living as true disciples by these standards. And this study explicitly aims to help the religious person see that he is not a Christian. So that's straight out of their study guide. Even devout and consistent churchgoers are led to realize that they have never been saved. They've been unsaved all along. By tearing down the recruit's religious identity, the group then can create a platform on which to imprint their own identity, which is being a true disciple. 3, it reinforces an insider versus outsider mentality. Since only those who meet this radical criteria are true disciples, it follows that most people in mainstream churches are not true Christians. So you, the recruit, begin to view the outside religious world, even well-meaning family, friends, former pastors, relationships that you have, as deceived or as lukewarm. Meaning that the members of the ICOC, the ICC, the RCW, who do live by these standards, appear to be sold out. They're real, they're saved Christians. And this exclusivity will be made even more explicit in later studies, but the separation begins right here. Next, it introduces the concept of a discipler or a mentor, and this is hierarchical obedience, right? By implying that once in the church, ongoing discipling is commanded based on Matthew 28, the study legitimizes the idea that this recruit will need to have somebody over them to direct them. There is a lot on the internet about this practice, and I urge anybody that's considering this group or that's in this group currently to do some research on the web and see just the devastating impact that this type of control has had on literally 1 million people that have passed through the doors of this church. Planting the idea of discipling early makes the eventual control over the recruit's personal life seem like this is just what the Bible teaches. Lastly, it elicits a personal decision. So by design, at the end, the recruit should say, I see that I have not been a true disciple and I want to become one. And that decision is so powerful. The recruit is internalizing that their own study of Scripture has led them to this conclusion. Of course, these are hand-picked verses out of context. But once they declare that they want to be a disciple, their self-image then shifts from that of an independent person to that of a student who needs to learn how to live as a disciple. And it creates that buy-in. According to one critical analysis, the discipleship study may seem like a well-meaning call to deeper commitment. However, the study will attempt to establish that the student has never been a disciple, is not a Christian, and is not saved. And this is the absolute truth about this study. If you're studying with somebody in the International Church of Christ, the International Christian Church, or the RCW, they do not believe that you are saved, and they do not believe that you are a disciple unless you believe exactly as they do. And this is a massive step towards cementing that and dropping that emotional anchor. The study is designed as a wake-up call to make the recruit realize that they're not actually a Christian, but they need to be. It defines that the only valid Christianity is this radical discipleship that's practiced by this group. And it positions the group as the exclusive community of the saved. The study demolishes the recruit's spiritual confidence. It replaces it with a conviction that they must start new as a disciple under Jesus, which is really the church's authority. And it effectively secures the recruit's consent to be taught and to be led, which means from here on, the group can direct them at what they want to achieve. The discipleship study establishes the group's high demand as a biblical mandate, and it convinces the recruit that they must change and they must join to be saved. The amount of manipulation, control, and corruption that these groups express over their members cannot be overstated, particularly as it comes to cutting you off from your family and friends and siphoning your money. At the end of the day, I believe this group is a multi-level marketing scheme. And this study is one of the most transparent examples of how that works. If you choose to continue in the studies, I highly recommend you take your own notes, you go back, you interrogate the passages, you read them in the context, and then you come back here to get the recap on study number 4, the kingdom.